So, what the heck do we do now? Welcome everybody to JG9 News, where we talk all things NFL all the time. I'm Jaguars 9 representing the 904 from the 602, and today we're talking about the Jaguars and the offseason and what they can do at wide receiver now that the bombshell has dropped. Calvin Ridley going to the division rival Tennessee Titans on a 4-year deal worth $92 million, $23 million per year. I did a video on Ridley going to the Titans, my immediate reaction. I did a video about an hour ago. Go check that out if you haven't already. I will leave a link in the upper right corner and the description. Bottom line with that, I have no problem not paying that price. I think that's a massive overpay. At the same time, it never should have gone to that point. The Jags should have just franchised Calvin Ridley and been able to sign Josh Allen to a long-term deal. The fact that they twiddled their thumbs and did nothing on that for a year shows the incompetence of Trent Baalke as general manager. Having said that, I have no problem not paying $23 million. But the Jags clearly have a hole at wide receiver. Wide receiver is now the biggest need on the team, bar none. Yes, there are some other needs, like potentially cornerback, like the interior of the defensive line, like potentially some depth on the offensive line. But wide receiver is by far the biggest need the team has now that Calvin Ridley is no longer there. So what can the Jaguars do for the rest of the offseason? Well, I've got 4 possible options for what Jacksonville can do and how they can approach this offseason, knowing that they need a wide receiver 1 to replace Calvin Ridley's production, where he had over 1,000 yards last season. Option 1 is to do nothing. Option 1 is to just keep everything exactly the same and run it back with Zay Jones, Gabe Davis on the outside, and Christian Kirk on the inside. This would be absolutely moronic. This would be the dumbest thing you could do, and this is a fireable offense by Trent Baalke, of which he's had about 20 at this point. This is basically just running it back with the 2022 crew of Marvin Jones, Zay Jones, and Christian Kirk. It's no different, but with a more injury-prone Zay Jones and a way less consistent wide receiver than Marvin Jones was in Gabe Davis. This is easily a bottom 10 receiving unit in football. On top of that, running it back would make no sense whatsoever, because that's why you acquired Calvin Ridley in the first place. The offense wasn't getting anything going vertically. You weren't able to stretch the field. The team was bad at the start of 2022. That's why you made that move at the trade deadlines and you get Calvin Ridley, because they couldn't get anything really going. They couldn't stretch the field. You couldn't win those jump balls. You didn't have that guy. So running it back, except you swap out Marvin Jones with Gabe Davis and you make Zay Jones 2 years older and more injury prone and not as good, and creating less separation than he was before, which is saying something. Yeah, this would be a horrible move. I don't think the Jags go this route. They've shocked me before in terms of how incompetent they can be, but I don't think they would go this route, just keeping it the same. In all likelihood, they are going to do something to replace Calvin Ridley. So option 2 is to sign Mike Williams. He is the only guy on the market right now that could fill that Calvin Ridley role on the outside, be that jump ball guy, be that vertical guy that can draw pass interference penalties and can get you gains of 20-plus yards down the sideline. The pro with Mike Williams, when he's healthy, obviously, he's great. You need a guy to stretch the field vertically. He can do that and fill that Calvin Ridley role. On top of that, look at the next gen stats. He's the 3rd best on vertical routes from 2018 to 2022, behind Justin Jefferson and Devontae Adams. He is in very good company. Mike Williams, a top 10 wide receiver in Chargers history. Very good when he's healthy. The obvious con, though, is the health. Injury history, it's prevalent with Mike Williams. There's a plethora of injuries. Not that it stopped Trent Baalke before. He seems to like guys coming off of torn ACLs. Hasn't stopped him before. But Mike Williams coming off that torn ACL in 2023, he's going to be on the wrong side of 30 next season. Then again, so is Calvin Ridley. So I'd be a bit hypocritical if I said I don't want to pay Calvin Ridley that kind of money, because he is going to be on the wrong side of 30, and then Mike Williams is going to be the same age. Having said that, though, Mike Williams has not played a full season since 2018, and he's never started 16, let alone 17 games in a season. He's only played in 16 games one time in his 7 seasons in the NFL. Again, the reason the Chargers let Mike Williams go, nothing to do with production, nothing to do with the injury. It was just a cap-related move. The Chargers saved $20 million in cap space by letting Mike Williams go. I did a video on that. Go check that out if you haven't already. I'll leave a link in the upper right corner and in the description. The problem, the other con with this is that there could be a bidding war, and I'm not sure the Jags can win that bidding war. On top of the New England Patriots, who missed out on Calvin Ridley, you have teams like the Kansas City Chiefs, who have $20 million in cap space additional now that Patrick Mahomes has restructured his contract. You got teams like the Arizona Cardinals, maybe the Houston Texans. You've got about 6 or 7 teams that are probably going to be interested in Mike Williams. Will the Jags win a bidding war? Are they going to be interested in a bidding war if they didn't want to do a bidding war for Calvin Ridley at $23 million a year? I'm not sure what Jacksonville's price point is. I don't know what Trent Baalke's price point is, but Mike Williams is a potential option for the Jaguars to replace Calvin Ridley. Option 3, trade for T. Higgins. Trade for T. Higgins on the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, if the Jags get T. Higgins, he is better than Calvin Ridley, better than Mike Williams, better than any of the receivers I'm going to mention today. Problem is that I have no clue what the price is going to be. I have no clue what the price would be for T. Higgins. What we do know, though, is that he wants out of Cincinnati. He formally submitted a trade request because he can't come to a long-term deal. Currently on the franchise tag in Cincinnati, tried to get a long-term deal, couldn't get it done. He wants to be traded. We'll see if Cincinnati deals him. No signs that they are going to deal him, but he is disgruntled, and the Jags do have 8 picks to work with and a pick in each of the first 3 rounds. The big thing with that is you can deal compensatory picks too. So the 2 compensatory picks the Jags got from Arden Key and Jawan Taylor, they could be a part of that package. It's one of the big reasons too why I was not happy about the Mac Jones trade, especially because C.J. Beathard is the backup, because the Jags had 9 picks. Now they only have 8 picks. That's 1 less pick to work with, less ammunition to work with in a potential trade for T. Higgins or another guy. But T. Higgins is always a possibility. Will the Bengals do it? Will they trade him? I don't know, but it is a possibility. But I think the most likely possibility, what I think will happen, is option 4, you just address wide receiver in the draft. Now, I'm very dicey about this because Trent Baalke's history of drafting wide receivers is very, very bad. If you look at Baalke's history drafting wideouts, it's actually kind of pathetic. The best wideout he's drafted in that stretch might legitimately be Parker Washington. And I like Parker Washington, don't get me wrong, but he's not a starter. If he is starting this year for Jacksonville, something went horribly, horribly wrong, and he's the best receiver that Baalke has drafted in his 9 years as a GM between San Francisco and Jacksonville. So I'm not crazy about this option. Having said that, though, it is a deep wide receiver class, according to many experts. Anywhere from 6 to 8 wide receivers, if you look at the mock drafts, are projected to go in the first round. You can also trade up because you do have 8 draft picks to work with. You're at pick 17, so moving up into the top 10 if you like one of those big 3 guys. The big 3 seem to be Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Rome. Now, obviously, Marvin Harrison Jr. are going to go to the Cardinals at pick number 4, barring anything crazy. So you're looking at Rome, you're looking at Neighbors. If it gets to pick 8 or 9 and one of those 2 guys is still on the board, Jacksonville could swing something to trade up. We've seen Baalke trade in the first round before. We saw it happen in 2022 when they got Lloyd. We saw in 2023 they traded backwards to try and get what will become Anton Harrison. We saw them try and trade up in 2021 to get Kadarius Toney. Didn't work out. They ended up getting Travis Etienne instead, which was a much better move than getting Kadarius Toney. But we have seen Trent Baalke try and trade up before and work some magic in the first round. Having said that, Trent Baalke, if he does want to go the trade route, not the best negotiator in the world. He had all those third-day picks last year. Didn't trade a single one of them. And the reason why, he said he couldn't negotiate any deals, which is pretty alarming. Pretty alarming with all those picks, all those times the Jags were on the clock last year on day 3, and he got no deals done in terms of trading up or down. Stayed pretty stagnant the entire time outside of the first round. But the draft is an option, and you have to figure if the Jags don't do anything in free agency, that the Jaguars will draft a receiver in the first round. I'd be very, very surprised if they do not do that. What I could see the Jags doing, I mentioned in the last video, I could see them giving the money that they were going to give it to Calvin Ridley. Instead, you give it to Eric Armstead. You fill up that hole in the defensive line, and then you get a wide receiver in round 1. I could see them doing that because really the Jags enter this offseason with 3 big holes: defensive line, center, and wide receiver. You patched up center with Mitch Morse. If you can patch up defensive line in getting Eric Armstead, who is a Baalke guy because Baalke did draft Armstead. He just got released by the Niners for cap-related reasons. You fill up those 2 holes, you get a receiver round 1. I can live with that. I can live with that. Again, the Jags have to do something at wide receiver. I don't think they just stay the same with what they've got right now. They have to do something. We'll see if they do it in free agency, via trade, via the draft. A lot of options available. We'll see what Trent Baalke does. Do you have faith in Trent Baalke? I'm not really so sure he's done anything to earn my faith or earn my trust, but we'll see what happens here. But what are your thoughts on the whole situation with the Jaguars at wide receiver? How do you rank the Jags receiving unit right now? Do you think they draft a guy? Do you think they sign Mike Williams? Do you think they trade for T. Higgins? What do you think Jacksonville does to fill the void that Calvin Ridley left behind now that he's going to the Tennessee Titans? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. That's going to do it for this episode of JG9 News. Be sure you like and subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot. And be sure to check my main channel, Jaguars9, where we talk all things NFL history all the time. Until next time, this is Jaguars9 signing off, and as always, go Jags.